or because of the introduction of a new way of doing things, right? So 1 minute that data set is viable, we can beat our chest and say this is what the future will be like. But the next minute, I mean, that entire, concept that you have, that you trust in, becomes immediately, obsolete. You cannot bank on it anymore. Why? Because a radical thinker somewhere has introduced, has offset the balance with, a new innovation, right? So it's in the midst of all of these uncertainties that scientists then thought it wise that, okay, so teaching my child math and all of these things are not the best way to go, right? What you want to teach them is critical thinking, because if I cannot tell what that future will be like, there's something I can beat my chest to and say that the children will definitely need. Whatever the future turns out to be, they are going to need to be able to communicate, right? They're going to need to be able to pass on that idea that they have, communicate that solution, right? They are also going to need to they are also going to be able to, there's going to be need for them to think critically, whatever the future of work, is going to be for them. So I hope that that's helpful, right? I think there are about 21 of them in total, right? But for some reason, schools have just decided to hammer a whole lot on, the 4Cs. I know that there are other schools that are doing much more than the 4Cs, but I hope that was quite helpful. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. I think that little question and answer conversation session was, sort of enough to give us that buffer for people to join in, and I will just dive into it ready. Just allow me share my screen now. And yeah, great. So, I mean, everyone should be able to see my screen now. You can leave me a comment in the comment section to give me that feedback. Let me know if it is visible on your end. All right, great. Thank you so much for your feedback. Thank you. I do appreciate that feedback. Okay, so what do I have on the screen, right? Quick recap, we've looked at what STEM is, we've looked at what project-based learning is, we've looked at the elements, right, that you must have in every project-based learning block that you are carrying out, that you're executing, right? The gold standard is what I'm referring to. We did justice to it yesterday, right? And as a core part of this entire workshop, what we've done is we've created a curriculum that teachers, educators around the world can pick up and use, right? And the curriculum that we created is quite appeals to a diverse set of learners. We've taken into consideration the diversity that exists amongst learners. We've taken into consideration the realities of our current economy, right? Amongst many others, right? And so we were able to put all of this thought together and say, okay, if we want teachers to learn how to deliver or practice STEM, right? We don't just want to let every educator loose out there and then
everyone is trying to, shuffle around, grab what you can, make use of what you can. No, 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 no. So we've made a curriculum that any teacher can use, right? I'm going to introduce that curriculum, right? So it's really left to you, right? You want to implement STEM in your school, either as a club, extracurricular activity, I might even as well say co-curricular activity. I mean, it's all left to you in whatever shape or form that you want to implement STEM. You don't have to, design the wheel. You can make use of what we already, are providing you, a full-fledged STEM curriculum, right? So I'm going to introduce this STEM curriculum in a few seconds now, let you know what it entails, what our thoughts, was like when we were putting this STEM curriculum together, what we've done and how we've, done it. Like the curriculum, we've divided into four, like the four pillars: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Under the science pillar, right, we divided that science pillar into three core areas, right? There's the earth and space science, there's the biological science, there's the physical science. Those are the three vital parts that we are looking at, right? Earth and space science have topics under them that relate to exploring the ecosystem, weather patterns, the solar system, right? Things along that line. Biological science entails things like life cycle, biodiversity, food chains, and what have you. And then physical science, of course, would include things like, motion, electricity, energy, and, all of these interesting topics. Now, you can already tell that these themes, they should resonate with you irrespective of the level of in the educational system that you found yourself, whether it's the elementary system, the secondary system, whatever level, right? These are topics that are, recurring. They are recurring themes that you can relate with. And of course, in that same fashion, in that same manner, we've also done the same thing to technology. We divided technology into coding and robotics, right? And of course, there's the maths, pardon me, the engineering part where we've divided that into design, process, and innovation, right? And then food production, right? Design, process, and innovation is quite an interesting block, really. It's quite interesting, right? We talked about the engineering design principles that kids need to start learning, right? It's a cycle. They need to learn how to ideate and all of those things. It's a cycle that we've deliberately put into the curriculum. Food production, of course, is already self-explanatory. And then lastly is the math, right? We've divided math into data and then shapes and representation, right? So these are what we've divided each of these STEM pillars into. Now, I think at this point, I should also make mention to you that for all of these pillars, or for each of the pillars that I've mentioned and each of the core areas inside of these pillars that I've mentioned, we have made it in such a way that we divided into 6 levels, right? So Earth and space science, for example, under the science pillar, right? This core area that we've called Earth and space science, we have divided this, the learning level, right, into 6 levels. And these 6 levels, you can loosely align them with GSS 1 all the way to senior secondary school 3. Right? Depending on your own baseline assessment, your own experience with the kids, you can tell, right, what level that they can handle. But if all fingers, all situations, kept equal, in an ideal state, you should be able to take the level 1
and apply it to a GSS1 class. The concept being taught at that level is something that, you know, would be very much understandable to a year one, a GSS1 child, right? Same thing level 2, same thing level 3, aligns with GSS2 and GSS3 respectively. Now, there are some elementary teachers amongst us that would then feel like, well, if this is loosely aligned to the senior secondary school, uh, what then is in for us? Well, you would also find, and that's why I use the word loosely, right? There's a lot of thoughts that actually went into designing this. That's why I said I use the word loosely. They are not cast in stone. They are not rigid, right? You would find, I will soon show you the curriculum now. You will find that the concepts that are covered in under level 1, they are concepts that should also resonate with, I mean, I can stretch it to a year 3, a grade 3, primary 3 child, but more comfortably would be from year 4, 5, and 6. So level 1, you will find that the topics that are and the concepts that are being taught, a year 4 student would have seen those concepts, can understand those concepts also, right? Level 2 would be for year 5, that's primary 5, and then primary 6. Sorry, my use of language, when I say year, I'm referring to the primary session or grade levels. There are some intricacies about, you know, year and grade, because of the difference in, you know, curriculums and, you know, how they are being practiced. But when I use those, you know, terms loosely, you should be able to, you know, sort of understand what class I'm referring to, right? So just bear with me. I've just been using it for quite a while, and it's tasking for me now to, you know, adjust my tongue, right? Okay, so having said that, so let me, I mean, I might as well just quickly give you like a brief overview. I'll just maybe do science and technology. So, PBL ideas under this earth and space science could be in line of maybe student thinking about designing weather stations, either building or monitoring or tracking local weather, right? Local weather conditions over a period of time. It could be the period for which you are teaching it, right? For which you are teaching, and then they can even analyze those data. They can collect those data and then analyze those data. I mean, earlier today, I was looking at a checkpoint question with some of my students. It was in mathematics, right? And, you know, again, I would normally, you know, tell them that there are subtle differences between the way the common entrance would phrase their question and then the way checkpoint would phrase their question, right? Checkpoint wouldn't ask you the low order thinking, low order level questions, right? They're going to ask you application questions, right? So there was a question that did catch my interest, was a simple question. They phrased the question in this manner. The question goes something like, John bought some length of Christmas lights, right? And because he wanted to, you know, sort of design his house for Christmas. On the fence, he used the length of 3.7 meters, 3.75 meters. The numbers, the particulars aren't really important, but just pay attention to 3.7 meters. And then on another part of the house, he used another maybe 2 point or 1.6 meters. How many lengths of disco light or Christmas light did he use in total, right? That's just a simple addition question, right? I mean, if it was maybe in a Nigerian context, what they will have just asked you is 3.7 plus 6.5 or plus 1.3. No one is going to bother about how that this knowledge is actually beyond the number, right? It is in the application of it, right? That's how students, when you teach them in that manner, in that fashion, that's how they are able to go out there and make sense of the world around them, right? But what
we see in practice today, it's changing. I must applaud that teachers are also, striving to change that narrative, is that, students are, learn all of these theoretical things without, having to see the application in, the real world, as it were. Right. So I thought to chip that in so they can analyze all of this data to understand weather patterns, compare global climate records and trends and things like that. That's just like, an idea around what kind of project-based learning methods, comes to mind when you are looking at the earth and space science core area under the curriculum that we've made. Biological science also focuses on understanding living things. I mentioned the ecosystem and what have you, physical science, force and motion and things like that. I mean, under perhaps maybe the biological science, they can think about maybe developing, building, prototyping a sustainable ecosystem. They can design it themselves. They can build small self-sustaining ecosystems, right, in a jar. Right? They are learning about biodiversity, food chains, life cycles, right? At most, what people do to food chains, life cycle is to give the student diagrams on the board, right? They see the diagrams, right? Some teachers are a bit more proactive to even maybe give them activities beyond diagrams that they need to draw, maybe a play activity that they can carry out in the class time. Some will even say maybe draw it, make a cardboard representation of it and things like that. But beyond that, right, they can apply this knowledge on a particular project. Imagine you showcasing, your students showcasing a self-sustaining ecosystem in a jar, right? It shows forward thinking, really, right? Self-sustaining ecosystem. Right? It doesn't have to include a lot of animals, right? So in that GSS3 class or in that GS2 class or in that, I think food chain is also taught at primary 5, right? Primary 5, if not primary 4 now, I think it's primary 5, right? And you can, take that an entire block of learning a step further and, work on a project, right? You can examine your immediate community, right? What does it mean to have a self-sustaining ecosystem, right? You can examine, your community and think around how to, make that project work. I mean, students are already, with that little thing that you are doing, you may not realize, but students are already taking roles of ecologists, right? Project managers, researchers, they're going to be doing all of these things, right? They can record the daily changes that happens in that ecosystem, make predictions, explain how the ecosystem, will self-sustain itself, right? Self-sustain itself. These are conversations that, students are already having in more advanced communities, right? We have students in the primary level or secondary level, college level, who are already thinking in the line of if we do eventually leave planet Earth and we go to Mars, right? How are we going to colonize Mars? Planet Mars. How are we going to colonize Mars? How are we going to build? How are we going to do all of these things, right? You remember that one of the core talks, considerations around that, habiting, building another habitat on another planet would be that it's not a journey that you can, be going every day and coming back, right? So whatever it is you are doing, you have to pack your bags properly so that the first set of people that eventually lands on Mars, can develop a self-sustaining system such that they don't need to, go back and forth, right? And things like that. So it'll be quite interesting for the community, for the world at large, for schools, for, adults around to, know what students can come up with in that line. Right, so that's for biological science. Because of time, I'm not going to dwell too much on physical science, but because the slides are on the screen, I would believe that some of us have even taken the liberty to, read them up. Now, so let me just jump into showing you what the curriculum looks like. This is already 6:35, right? So we are right on time because I want to run through this curriculum with us, and then I want us to look at what a project-based planner is. I had mentioned PBL planner yesterday, right? Just about around the time where we were, going to close. So I'm going to quickly, in maybe 5 minutes, run you through what the PBL planner is, and I'll show you a PBL planner and show you how to actually, plan that PBL block that you have. Off the top of your head now, you can begin to think about the subjects that you handle, whether you are handling a single subject or more than one subject, 2 or 3 subjects, right? Begin to think around, okay, so all of these subjects I'm handling, these are the topics I'm doing, right? You can pick one or isolate 1 or 2 topics from these different subjects and think around what problems can you solve. It's, the topics and the targets. Now, if you begin, I should also put this out there that when you begin to think about what problems can you solve, that knowledge would begin to inform also, it will help you reflect on the lesson objectives that you are giving to the children, right? Then you realize that your lesson objectives can no longer be low order thinking lesson objectives. Remember, list, all of those things, right? It has to go beyond that. Yes, it is possible for you to get the slide after the class. Thank you so much for that question. It is possible for you to get the slide after the class, and you sure would get the slide after the class. So let's quickly look inside just before we go to the PBL planner. Let's just see what that curriculum looks like. So I'm going to stop presenting quickly, or instead of stop presenting, I'll just change the screen that I'm presenting presently. And I'll present to you the document. Now that I'm giving it another thought, I think a better approach would be also to share the link in the chats section so that you can also click on it from your end and also walk through it in the same manner that I will be doing, right? I think if I do go to the next slide, you should already see a link that you can quickly type into. Yes, you can see that. You can type that into your browser, just about any browser that you have, right? And you can open, that should open it, right? It's bit.ly, bit.ly/NetFactory STEM Science Pillar, right? STEM Science Pillar, no space, and they are all in small letters, no capital letters. Once you click on that link, it should bring you to the page where you have an Excel sheet that sort of details what that pillar looks like. Okay, a PDF document. So maybe I'll use this as an example for today's class. Right? I'll use this as an example for today's class. So if you're unable to, okay, so someone is asking for the link, right? It's just right there on the presentation, right? bit.ly/NetFactory. I might as well just paste it also, right? So I've also left you the link. Okay, to be more easier to access. All right, so I just posted the link. Just click on it and it will open up. For the benefit of those that are unable, for some reason, you cannot multitask with the device you are using and you also want to take a look at it. I am presenting that screen now. So you should, at this point, be seeing that screen, right? You should no longer see my presentation.
And the screen you should be looking at now should be the STEM pillar. And I'm going to zoom in a second now. Yes, you can click the link. If it's clickable on your end, it should be clickable on your end. You can click the link, but if it's not clickable, you can copy it, right? And then go to your browser and then paste it. If any of those two are a bit difficult for you to carry out, then I would advise that you stay on here on the Zoom call, right? I am presently presenting that same thing, right? That's what I'm presenting on the screen now, right? That's what you should be looking at on the screen. Even though I'm now realizing that if I zoom in, it may then make the entire thing mashed up. All right, you've been able to access it. Perfect, great. All right, so if you have been able to access it, then you sure can walk alongside me now. What I'm doing now is I'm going to open the main document just so this is even more visible. Okay, I believe this should be more visible. Okay, so if you are still here paying attention to the Zoom screen that I'm sharing, let me know. I think this should be more visible. If you've been able to make it to the document and you can see the document, that's also perfect, right? That's also perfect. So I'll just go through it one after the other. Now you'll notice that it is divided in the manner, the shape that I mentioned, right? Physical science, biological science, earth science, right? And for each of those core areas under the science pillar, we have divided it into 6 levels. Now, there is a color coding that you will notice that differentiates levels 1 to 3 and 4 to 6. Right? You should notice that color coding. It differentiates levels 1 to 3 and then 4 to 6. It just gives you an idea of increasing complexities, right? How that we move from lower complexity to an even higher complexity. So for level 1 now, let's start from level 1 as like the example that I mentioned. I mentioned that remember, I said categorically that perhaps you are in the primary session. If you look at level 1, I'm going to read it out. We're going to walk through it together. You should already, see immediately that this can comfortably be undertaken by, year 4, 5, and 6. I mean, I can stretch it to even year 3, right? But I would prefer for more, it'll fall in the comfort zone of, the year 4 class. All right, so for level 1, the theme we came up with was exploring our backyard, right? The concept that we aim to teach under this theme is basic understanding of the environment and weather. And then another thing is introduction to natural resources and their uses. Now, these are themes that resonate within the primary session or GSS1, right? An introduction to the natural resources that are around them. And we've also done well to align this with the Bloom's taxonomy, right? So if you look at let me describe, if you look at the description of this particular theme, right? We are going to focus on understanding and observing the local environment, right? That students encounter daily. That local environment could be subjective, right? We are teaching in the rural area. The local environment can be their immediate school environment. Local environments can even translate to their home environment, right? Where they come in contact, where they encounter daily, right? This theme is supposed to connect students with their immediate surrounding, whether it's in the rural or urban settings, right?
And some of the lesson objectives that I have there is one, right? The students would observe, not just observe, they would also describe simple environmental changes, right? Like weather patterns, seasonal changes, right? That's one of the lesson objectives. You are not limited to these lesson objectives. You can expand them. You can adapt them also, right? You can expand, you can adapt, right? Same thing for this curriculum. You don't have to follow this curriculum hook, line, and sinker, right? You can adapt it. Another objective that we came up with was that students should also be able to identify and classify basic resources, right? Water, soil, plants, and so on and so forth. Now, remembering, understanding, they all fall within the lower Bloom's taxonomy, right? And then applying because of their level 1. You will notice that when you now move to level 2, right? And then level 3 and then level 4, increasing complexity, right? So the best that we thought was could be achievable at this point was for them to be able to apply that knowledge, right? Which is a whole lot better than understanding and remembering, right? They can apply that knowledge by making simple predictions about environmental outcome, right? E.g. the effect of sunlight and plant growth. Again, I said you can adapt, right? I remember one of the arguments that I put forth while we were doing this is, come on, they can create at this point. So look at the PBL project, right? Look at the PBL project that students can work on, right? Doesn't mean that this is the only thing. These are just suggestions, right? These are suggestions that your students may want to consider, right? They can maintain a weather journal with daily observations. They can maintain a weather journal with daily observations. In your band settings, you already have tools that can even help you. I mean, every Android phone already has a Google weather application that you can use to either keep or collect data, right? There are websites out there that can give you live weather forecast. Open Weather, for example. Open Weather is one of those websites. There are several out there, right? I mean, they may even want to be creative, even more creative, and make their own either wind measuring device, a barometer. They can make all of those things, wind speed or wind direction, right? And then they can take all of those weather measurements, right? They can be proactive, split them into groups. Those that come early can take all of those measurements in the morning. During break, they can take another measurement, and just after leaving school or just about when they're about to leave school at the close of the school day, they can take the third reading. And so when they do that for a whole week, 5 days, when they do that for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on, remember I talked about extended period of time, depending on what that extended period of time means for you in your situation, right? You now have data that they can then start looking at how to interpret, right? In GSS 1 or primary 3 or primary 4, they should already know how to interpret all of those data into a simple bar chart, into simple pie charts, or whatever charts that they want to use, right? They are collecting all of these things and then they are presenting it. Remember, again, they are not presenting to the people that they are familiar with. It has to be to the external public, not the public that they encounter day in, day out, right? And that's a useful knowledge for them, that in my school, I know what the weather is like. And I can even go a step further to predict and say, okay, the next 2 days or 3 days, this is what the weather will be like. Or in the next few weeks or few months, this is what the weather will be like. Because of this is what our data is showing us. When we plotted all of this data that we collected, we noticed that starting from the first day, we noticed that the wind speeds kept increasing or kept reducing. Now they are already interpreting their data. They can present it PowerPoint or using Microsoft Sway and all of these other things, right?
They can create a local resource map and discuss its uses, right? They can, like I said, create simple experiments to observe the effects on plant growth, under these different conditions. Right? Those are ideas that you can think around. Now, you will notice that silently, even in the midst of me trying to pitch some of these ideas off the top of my head, I've mentioned how that other subjects are already coming into the play, into the scene, right? Because you are teaching science. This is supposed to be under earth and space science, but see how that they're already doing math in it, right? Again, the reason why we clamored in the first class that STEM is an interdisciplinary approach, right? We brought out math from it. I mean, when they are doing their presentation, if they are going to use PowerPoint, that's already technology, already infused in the solution that they have, right? Perhaps you are maybe thinking, okay, so what problem can we point all of these things that they are going to do to? Another problem that you can point, it could be educating the masses or educating the public, educating the local community, right? About their weather, the weather patterns that they have and how they maybe apply to them, right? Again, these ideas that I just mentioned are off the top of my head. I mean, we can continue to refine them to suit different needs, right? But they are not cast in stone, right? So you can look at all of these different levels for the class that you teach and, begin to get inspiration as to what you can do for the next half of the term that's left, or what you can bring to the table based on what you've done already for the previous half of this term. Right? Now that's all under earth and space science, right? You are not limited to earth and space science. You may also maybe go to, let's just perhaps take physical science, for example. So physical science, GSS 2 or grade 5, year 5, primary 5, right? That's level 2. Now, remember I said that level 1, you can loosely apply that to primary 4, 5, and 6, what have you, or you can decide to apply it to GSS 1, GSS 2. And so when I choose level 2, that's why I mentioned either primary 5 or GSS 2, right? I think I want to pause at this point to ask, right, are we understanding, right? I don't want to go too far and then find out that we've missed, salient points, but just let me know at this point, is it making sense? Or are there questions that you want to ask at this point? So I'm going to keep an eye out on the chat section. Then engineering, when they improvise weather instrument. Thank you so much, Mrs. Atinuke. Thank you so much for that contribution. Yes, and that was really spot on. Right, that was spot on. All right, thank you so much. Also, okay, so I'll just continue. So look at level 2, for example, or another example. Pardon me. So level 2, the theme that we thought of is exploring energy in action. Exploring energy in action. Exploring energy in action. Now, let me describe what brought about this, what we were thinking when we started looking at this. We thought about that, how do human activities affect the environment, right? The entire essence is to encourage students to reflect on and address local environmental issues and practices. Local environmental issues and practices. Local environmental issues and practices, right? A thought came to my mind earlier this week. I'm somehow, maybe because I didn't document it, I have forgotten, right? I was going to ask my student, right? And I would also advise that teachers, you should do this from time to time, right? At the assembly ground, circle time, you may call it. You should ask students. You should be able to see how they interpret. You know, you'll be amazed that you go to some schools and the students don't know what's happening. Some students will even tell you, oh, we don't like news. News is boring, right? Well, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. So the question I was going to ask my student was, what's your opinion on the recent governmental demand or governmental opportunity of turning your present vehicles or vehicles on the street, vehicles on our roads from petrol to CNG, right? What will be the implication to the society, to the environment? Can be the social, you can look at it from the social aspect, right? I mean, in social studies, you can be thinking around that line. So how would this affect families? One, would this spell for the economy growth, or would this take us back? There are many issues that teachers need to start bringing up, right? When you find those news, come up, you should be able to find a way to ask questions that will cause the student to think deeply. I mean, one of the present debates that we are having is that the road safety should now start carrying guns. You want to, I don't know, I did it. I don't know if you did it during NSAS. It was a long conversation. It was across school boards, right? For some of the schools I was consulting for at that time, I wanted students to air their opinion on NSAS. Like, what's your take? They are not too young to be able to start thinking around all of these problems because, like it or not, it's affecting them. And you'll be amazed at some of these students that will come up with ideas, solutions that you never even thought possible. Right? And so that was what we were thinking of when we talked about exploring energy in actions, consequences of our practices and all of that. Right? We're going to be looking at energy transformation at the core concept behind this and basic components of simple systems. Now, the lesson objectives that we came up with, again, at level 2, you notice that we have bumped up the lesson objectives at this point, right? Because now I'm adding analyzing, which is already comfortably sitting at the higher order Bloom's taxonomy, right? So understanding how energy can be transformed from one form to another, right? Kinetic to potential energy, as an example, right? Applying experiments with simple system to observe energy transfer, pendulums, bouncing balls, and what have you, right? Bouncing balls, pendulums, whether you are using a golf ball, it could even be their football that they use, right? Energy transfer, right? You can contrast that with Play-Doh or clay, right? You can mold that clay into a ball shape, and then you will notice that the clay won't bounce, right? The clay won't, bounce, but the energy was actually converted, right? Converted to its energy, right? Potential energy converted to kinetic energy as the clay was dropping. When it hits the table, it doesn't bounce, but it's converted into, you could even argue that sound energy and heat energy. Right? You may not appreciate the heat energy that is converted to. Perhaps you will think it's negligible, but if there is a way that you can repeat that experiment and make sure that clay is always hitting that same spot on that wood, theoretically, right? Theoretically, again, I say theoretically, then you should get to a point where there should be a burn spot on that table. Right? Theoretically, that's what should happen. Right? And so these are things that you can think around that line, right? Identifying relationship between force and energy in our everyday life. Now,
some of the projects that you can have, the project-based ideas that you can have your students run is build a simple pendulum to observe energy transfer, right? They can use local materials to build their own pendulum, right? And they can use their watches to record, observe, and all of those things, right? And the goal is, energy transfer. So energy transfer at that point goes beyond what we have seen in our textbooks, right? It really, begins to make a whole lot of sense to them, right? They can create a cause and effect diagram to show energy transfer in a common system like a roller coaster, right? They may not be able to build a roller coaster, but there's this marble run game that is very common in STEM, right? Where the students have to, use these little marbles, or what you may know as beads, right? The beads that women use for adornment and what have you, right? Those circular ones, right? And the goal of that STEM activity is to build a platform where you give the students a particular time frame, like, for example, 1 minute. Their goal in that 1 minute is to make the marble, keep rolling or keep falling. If you don't get to the end before the 1 minute, right? And it shouldn't get to the end after the 1 minute. It should get to the end in the exact time frame that you have mentioned for them. So they have to build different platform. As the ball is rolling, they have to find a way to conserve the energy, right? If it's rolling too fast, they need to look at the angle that they are going to place the next platform that the bead or marble will fall on. If it's too slant, the ball will fall too fast, right? Now, this thing that I just mentioned, it may sound simple, but there's a whole lot of thoughts that go into it, right? There are schools that carry out an entire fun fair on just that single idea that I mentioned now, right? I mean, you can search for projects on it. You are going to find tons of it on YouTube, right? Marble race, and you'll find lots of these things, right? And they are looking at energy conversion, right? I can experiment again with energy transfer using different materials like rubber bands, springs, and and so on and so forth, right? And really, this idea that I mentioned, sort of cuts across, right? It sort of cuts across all of the levels. I would have loved to maybe take one concept from a level 6. That's what you would call maybe a SS3 in an SS3 class. So maybe let me take that level 6 from let me take it from biological science. I mean, I would have loved to take it from physical science also, engineering for a sustainable future. But I believe they are also self-explanatory. Maybe let me take, since I've taken one from Earth and Space, I've taken from physical, let me take this level 6 from biological science, right? All right, so innovating for biodiversity conservation, pardon me. Innovating for biodiversity conservation, right? The description of what we're trying to get to at this point was encouraging students to engage in independent inquiry. They are now in SS3, right? Okay, someone says we should please take math. Okay, so let me just switch to mathematics, right? Let me switch to mathematics on the data sheet that I have here. Another thing that I want to do is I'm going to share this link. I'm going to share this link, share with others. Just give me a second. Now, this link, for those that use the first link, right? For those that use the first link, you will notice that you are you only have the science pillar, right? You only have the science pillar, and that rightfully so, because
on the slide, we had only seen the science, pillar, how that it was divided into the three core aspects. So the link I am sharing now is an Excel sheet that has all of the pillars and all of the core areas. It has the science pillar and the three core areas, the technology pillar, the two core areas, and so on and so forth, right? So I am posting that link now. So you can kindly stop with the science pillar and then come back to the Zoom meeting and actually click on this link. You can click on it, you can copy it, but open this link now, right? Because I want to go to the mathematics part. Now, if you're unable to move back and forth, that's also fine. Just stick around with the presentation, the screen that is being presented, and you would also, be fine. Let me just hide disable annotations for others, because I can see there's an annotation on the screen. Okay, it is requesting for access. No, that it shouldn't be requesting for access. I thought I just granted. Just 1 second, I'm on the page now, so this should only take a few seconds. Okay, yeah, I missed this. Okay, please, updating, please refresh now. Refresh now, right? Refresh now. Yes, please click on the link. Refresh now. It should no longer be requesting for. So you can click on it. You can stay on the screen. I'm presenting that same thing, right? Whichever, whichever works for you. So remember that for mathematics, we divided it into two core areas. Data is one, and then shapes and representation, right, is another. Now, at the year 6 level, right, shapes and representation, right, is what I'm taking now, right? Level 6, that would apply to year 6, right? I mean, you can also look at data, but let me just stick with year 6 now. Now, the theme is geometry and data in future forward designs. Geometry and data in future forward designs. Ignore all of the grammar, right? The idea behind it is that we want students at that level to focus on the future applications of geometry and data in designing innovative solutions for societal challenges. And that societal challenges is really up to them, right? Whatever societal challenges that they feel they want to, take on, right? The concept that they will be learning is future forward geometry design and then integration of data into innovative solutions. Okay, that's why I love, project-based learning, because what you will see being practiced at, that year 6, level, particularly when they are doing all of this geometry, as beautiful as they are, is, they give you all of these formulas, all of these, laws, how to calculate this and how to calculate that, and, all of those complex things that sometimes you would even argue that the students even have to cram. And beyond that, they really cannot see, right? They really cannot see the connection, right? And you see these things play out in reality in little things, like call an average SS3 student, if even in your classroom, right? Depending on how the ceiling of your classroom is made, right? But ask them to give you a rough estimate of the dimensions of the class. If your students can answer that comfortably, then you are doing a good job. But if your students cannot answer that comfortably, right, it means there's room to, improve, right? there's room to improve, right? Okay, so one of the objectives here is students should be able to use data and geometry to design forward-thinking solutions to modern challenges. There are several modern challenges that we are facing now, whether it's in construction and all of that, right? Creating, innovating and implement designs that integrate geometry and data-driven insights, right? Innovate or implement, you can even say innovate and implement, right? Designs that integrate geometry and data-driven insights, right? So I love, for example, what they are doing in, I think the name of the school is James Hope, right? It was a GS3 student, that's a year 9 student that reached out to me one time and said, "Oh, we're giving this assignment during our holiday," and then she was, she was tinkering. She was hoping I would give her ideas on, things to do. Right? It was along this line, right? They are told them to innovate the design of simple. I think it wasn't particular to classroom equipment. I think it was the home, right? So we are used to chairs, right? We're used to chairs, we're used to beds, we're used to tables, right? So their task was to innovate those designs, right? You can either innovate the shape, you can innovate the materials that, that are used to build this simple things. I was watching on YouTube one time where someone, innovated the material that we use to build plastic chairs. The person had used a very funny material that was malleable, it was flexible, but at the same time very tough, right? So much so that, the person put that chair, right? The normal plastic chair that we know, I mean, even if a fat person, a chubby person sits on it, it could break. The person put it under these bulldozers, right? These giant tractors that have huge tires and all of that. The tractor, climbed over it, compressed, and then the moment the tractor left, the chair returned to its original size, and then the person took it and sat down on it. I thought, that was brilliant. All the person did was to innovate, right? Redesign, this time around materials. Now, they weren't going to do that in isolation. Help resend the last link. They weren't going to do that in isolation. The last link has been sent. They were going to, now, they took, someone's mic is unmuted. I hope that person can help us. Maybe let me just identify. Thank you. Now, they weren't going to do that in isolation also. They were going to do that with data. So they are not just rushing to just go and build anything, right? So they are going to carry out surveys and hear people's thoughts on what I wish a chair would look like, or what do I wish a chair would do for me. And they were doing this at a GSS3 class, right? Again, another target is working with peers to solve complex problems using a combination of data and geometry, data and geometry, data and geometry, right? So PBL project ideas that they can consider is to design a futuristic city layout using data on population growth and environmental conditions, right? I am hoping, right, with all of my heart, that even teachers, particularly math teachers that we have amongst us here, do not even think that these projects are unachievable or are too complex, right? They are not, actually, right? You can take Lagos, for this first case scenario as an example, you can take Lagos, right? Design a futuristic city using data on population growth and environmental conditions. There's been a recent flooding in the north. You can take that state based on their population growth, and of course, population growth and all of this, data you can find online, right? For example, you can take sensors or even
the population of the voters that have been registered over the many years that we've been carrying out election. There must definitely have been a growth in population, right? Now, I know that you may have to subject some of these data to how authentic or how reliable that they are, but those are things you can work around. The point is that you can get all of these data, right? You can get them, you can pull them off the internet. That's what a GSS, an SS3 student really should be doing, right? Population growth and environmental conditions. Environmental conditions would then take you into subjects. There are subjects like science that they are doing, whether it's biology, that maybe it could even be topics that they've done in SS2 or SS1. They can bring back that topic and begin to examine all of these things. Technology can come into it. If you look at the second project-based idea example that I put there, is that they can create a 3D model of a sustainable housing solution that uses geometry efficiency and data-driven designs. Now, if you may have seen or experienced or witnessed, if you see some of these new estates that are being built, right? It's not coincidental that the houses that you find in them all look alike, right? It's not coincidental, right? I just hope that the builders of those houses, they took into consideration some of these things, that whatever shape the house turns out to be, are those geometry efficient based on data, right? Are those geometry that they've chosen, no matter how beautiful the house may be, are they efficient, right? And geometry efficiency of the geometry in terms of homes or sustainable homes, housing solution would be useful in things like, governments want to build houses to reduce homelessness and all of these things. And when you look at a lot of these governments, like I think the building is called 101, I think on the island or something, right? It's a tall building with so many rooms and all of those things, right? Can they use data to build, geometry that are efficient? Would a triangle be efficient? For example, Dubai is building, one of their proposed building is that city that they said is going to be like, I think it's going to be like on a straight line, I think, or two parallel lines, right? You want your student to watch videos along those lines, right? Let them listen to people's thoughts. What are their considerations? I think consideration where the sun is setting from, where the sun is rising from, their designs, right? They can do this using 3D models like Thinkercad, right? They may decide to even use cardboards and make those prototypes, right? When SS3 students present all of these things, you hear good reasoning, right? You hear good reasoning in what they are doing, right? Again, they are presenting not to their peers, they are presenting to the public, right? That presentation can be to another school, right? They can host a presentation to another school and call all the SS3 students from that other school, right? They can collaborate on a project to develop using geometry and data. I know that this has to do with using geometry and data, but there's a school, a public school at some point, I think in Abuja, I don't know if it was in Lagos, that made this made fuel, right? They made their own fuel, and I think they had used materials like nylon, I think waste materials really, and then they converted all of those things to fuel, right? And I think one of the students, they were selling for then, before the fuel, this recent first saga, I think they said they were selling for maybe 79. I can't remember, but it was cheap. It was competitive, right? And you can use these fuels, this kerosene or fuel that they made in your lanterns and what have you. I don't even think they were in SS3.
when they did that, right? So you can collaborate on global issues, right? There are many out there, right? They can collaborate and develop that. They can collaborate and develop a solution for. There are many out there. Again, there are many out there, right? So when you are taking that geometry and you are teaching them all of these segments and chords and arcs and all of those things, there are ways that you can apply, right? Presently, a groundbreaking thought idea is around archipelagos, right? They are hexagonal or octagonal shapes, right? If houses have hexagonal or octagonal shapes, it allows you to build modular houses. What I mean by modular houses are houses that, you know, you can just, it looks, if you look at it from a wide angle, they look like Legos. They can snap together, they can fit together. Okay. The building is called, yes, 1004. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that. That can even be a case study for them. They can rethink it, right? I mean, if there's a way, I mean, if you are planning field trips and all of that, if there's a way you can contact, you know, those people, and who says you cannot administer a survey, right, to the residents of those places, as many people as want to take the survey, right, and find out that, because you remember that it is both the geometry efficiency and data. I mean, if people there are complaining that, oh, we would have preferred a larger space. I mean, are you saying you want a larger bedroom space? Are you saying you want a larger sitting room or living room space and all of that? Is the entire shape of this building affecting that, you know, that thoughts or that experience of yours, right? And all of these things are, you know, things that you can begin to, you can, you know, have those SS3 students make presentations on, host a Google Meet, host a Zoom meeting, let your student present to the world, let them present to local government chairmen, right? Write letters to local government, either the provost, the councillor. I have SS3 students, representative of SS3 students, 4, 6, as many as you can accommodate, right? They've been carrying out this thing for the entire term. They have identified solid points that I think you want to hear, right? Local governments, chairman, these people are even looking for people to, you know, because, I mean, in all honesty, forgive me, but they are even looking for people that, you know, that they can collaborate, that will make it look as though they are working, that they are doing something. So you'll be amazed at what the outcome will be, right? Who says that your student cannot write to Julius Berger or any construction company, either around them? Who says that they cannot do that? You may write to them, you may get a response, you may not get a response. It's part of it. Remember yesterday how I mentioned that you should also teach your student to fail, right? But there's a satisfaction that comes from, there's a fulfillment, I would say, that comes from the fact that, oh, we wrote a letter to Julius Berger. I mean, their customer care, I remember when my students went to, was it Detmos or Dettol? I can't remember. It was about a year or two ago now, right? They had written letters to them, and then they followed up. They did the same thing to this, what's the name of this paint? I can't remember the name of this paint industry, right? They did the same thing, right? Likewise, the same way they've done to so many other places, right? I cannot tell you how much my students have bombarded the Instagram pages of the Ministry of Women Affairs because of the projects that they want to carry out, right? It may not yield immediate was name, but you'll be shocked. You never can tell. They may pop up that message one day and then invite them over. Those are useful experiences or exposures that you want to give. I don't think, I mean, I remember how that when we were in primary school then, how that when the president is passing October 1st, they'll ask us to go and line up at what's the name, right? It's not like the man would even come and shake you and all of that, but just seeing that car pass and him standing up and waving, right, still is in my memory now, right? Imagine if we had opportunity to be in the same office as him and discussing what we are learning in school, what we've been able to apply, what we've learned in school. Right? Those could be life-defining moments for these students. Right? Again, that's why for me, I preach project-based learning anywhere that I go. Right? Having said all of this, remember again, I have to emphasize that it's not cast in stone. You can take all of these things and apply them. You can adapt them to fit the situation that you find yourself, whether in rural communities or urban communities, as the case may be. Right? Having done that, I'm going to go back now to the slide show that we had earlier and quickly run through. I've overflogged this, but it was good that I took examples from science, math, and if you run through the others, you're going to see quite interesting things. Now, you may decide to run these PBL blocks as co-curricular again, extracurricular, or just another club of your own. Right? You can gather students, right, and have a club on your own. Right? You can take this curriculum and build a STEM club, right? A project-based learning STEM club, and brand it well. And let the parents know, let the participant know that we are not here just to learn, the casual or the usual things, right? You can mold the student at the age that you find them. Okay. Now, what's a PBL planner? So I've shown you what's inside that curriculum that we've made. You can use it to your satisfaction. Now, a PBL planner, simply a strategic tool, right? It's a strategic tool, right? It's a strategic tool that you can use to help you manage any PBL project effectively. Right? You can use it to manage any PBL project effectively. Right? It's a strategic tool designed to help educators effectively organize and implement a PBL project in the classroom. Right? One of the key things that PBL planner does for you is that when you are making it, immediately you can already see all of the core elements that you need to put in that PBL, right? All of the core elements, the golden elements that we talked about. It will allow you to see that, okay, I've included this, okay, what's the name is not self-sustaining, or there's no reflection or feedback, and so on and so forth, right? So usually that PBL planner will have a title, project title, a driving question, learning objectives, the milestone or timeline, and of course, making product public. Now, this doesn't mean you are writing another lesson plan. It doesn't mean you are doing another lesson plan. It is not another lesson plan. But the lesson plan that you have, you can just take it and drop in this PBL planner. It's not another lesson plan. Right? You are taking what you have already. I mean, if you write your lesson plan electronically, I mean, sweet, it even reduces the workload. All you have to do or think about doing is just simple copy and paste, right? So that's perfect, right? If you still write it manually, it just means you have to, rewrite, things like the title and, your lesson objectives and all of these things. That's what the PBL planner is. This is not another thing. You already have your lesson plan, which is already good enough, right? Project title is going to be the title, your big idea, the big idea that you want to run with. The big idea, make it as fun as possible, right? As fun as possible, right? The title, right? You've identified a problem, right? You've identified a problem. You just want to carve out a name that can help sustain the enthusiasm that that you are bringing to that project,
right? The driving question is the question that will drive the entire project, right? That's the question that they are trying to answer, right? That's the question that they are trying to relate to prefer solutions for, right? Learning objectives and all of this, and timelines and milestones are included likewise. So let me not take much of your time. That's really what, in a nutshell, that's what that planner is. I'm going to show you a planner right now. Again, if you want to join me on the document itself, you can just go to bit.ly net factory STEM PBL planner. That's the same kind of link we used the other time. But instead of the science pillar now, instead of net factory STEM science pillar, it's now be net factory STEM PBL planner. For those that that's for those that want to, open their browser and open the document on their end. For others, again, I'm going to have it up here. So if it makes more sense or is easier for you to just stay on the screen that is being presented, that's also fine. Someone would very soon also say that, can we share the link? I'm also doing that now. Right? So you can also click on that link, copy it to your browser, whatever browser you are using, and you'll be good to go. All right. Okay, so I believe you're among the people that were planning to to ask for the link. All right. So okay, sorry. What I posted just now, I think that's the wrong one. That's saying the science pillar. It shouldn't be saying the science pillar. So please forgive that. And I'll adjust that. For some reason, I'm having a little bit of difficulty here. Just me. I think I might as well just put this manually since I'm here. So please just exercise a bit of patience. There's been an error with that link. That link will come up with the curriculum again. So just allow me. I'm trying to get back to it. Yes. Please allow me quickly. Okay, well, that took a bit of time, but thankfully um, I found it. So I'll just share with you, even though this is somewhat an older version, um, but I'll share that with everyone now. So I'm copying the link now. Okay, I need to grant access. Okay, so in the chat section, we can just click on it. Okay, so it was even there all the while. My goodness. Thank you so much. And so what you just posted is what I've been looking for, right? So everyone, you can even disregard what I shared just now and use what Mr. Matthew. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, right? That was what I was looking for all the while, right? Um, so I thought it wasn't visible. I thought it was taking us back. It was taking me back to the Excel sheets, right? So thank you for sharing, right? Thank you for sharing. Much appreciation. All right, so let me present my screen. Okay, so that everyone can also see those that cannot, multitask with their device can see what's going on the screen. All right, I'm going to walk through this every step of the way. All right, so this is a PBL planner, right? This is an example PBL planner, right? An example PBL planner. Now, is this the only kind of planner you will find out there? Not really. You may find other people that take another route, another kind of design, right, to their planners. But the elements, the key elements you will find in all of the planners would, of course, be the same cross board, no matter how you choose to design your planner. Remember that the gold standards, again, I said, some people have 8, some people have 6, some people have 7, whichever you have, right? But the key elements are not lost. So I'm going to zoom in. Now, the planner always has to start with a title, the big idea, right? In this case, the big idea was the national impact of technology, right? That was the big idea, national impact of technology. Particularly, we're looking at the impact of technology in Nigeria through the lens of safe online collaboration, right? Safe online collaboration. It may interest you to know that at the period where we carried out this particular PBL, right? When we're done with this was the, it happened around the period where, for some of us that may remember, there was an incident at Darwin College, Lagos State, Darwin College, right? Was it Darwin College then? It was about the boy called Sylvester Morumi, right? The issue of bullying and all of that, right? I mean, some of us may be able to relate, particularly if you are from Lagos, right? So at about that time was when we were carrying out this project-based learning block. I mean, we looked back when we were done with this particular block, and one of the things that beat our hearts was that perhaps if we had carried out this particular project earlier, we may have saved a life. It wasn't too long after that time where someone in another country, it was another African country, I think South Africa, where there was also another issue of bullying, but this time around it was a girl that was bullied, and it also led to the death of that particular student, right? So I just thought to give that context, right? How that everything was happening at around that period, right? That would even help you understand why this particular project-based learning was very important for us at that time. Now, the question that was driving this entire impact of technology, how collaborating online respectfully, the driving question for us was, what is my contribution to national internet safety? This was a question that every child had to ask themselves. What is my contribution to national internet safety? It's not enough to just point fingers and say, oh, it's the responsibility of this person, it's the responsibility of that person. What is my own contribution, no matter how little, no matter how huge it would be? And you remember that in the previous classes, I had mentioned that critical thinking also emphasizes how that you have to consider multiple solutions to a problem. So for child A, is solution to national internet safety may be to address it in a particular manner. For child B, his contribution to national internet safety may be to address it in another manner, right? Because I anticipated that there may be a variety of input from many students, it made a lot of sense to split them into groups so that they can find consensus in or agree on I want to confirm if I'm still audible. Can we all hear me loud and clear? Please, you can leave me a comment, or you might as well just quickly unmute anyone who can and just let me know. Just give me that feedback. All right, thank you so much, Mrs. Khadijat. Thank you so much. Now, the particular subject that that the project was hinged on was ICT, but of course, this also included other subject that we brought in was the ELA, art and design, and then writing, right? Those are the other subjects that we brought into this particular block, right? Of course, the teacher is myself. The duration, right, extended period that I mentioned, right, the duration of the entire PBL was for 6 weeks, 12 hours. And that was because we had an hour block, 2 periods every week, and each of those periods had like the duration was 1 hour, hence the 12-hour that you see there, right? Again, after that is the key knowledge and understanding, right? The key knowledge and understanding could be school-related standards or the standards that Lagos State has mandated that we stick to. Even though, if you ask me, those objectives and all of those things are I mean, they've been watered down, right? I mean, you can argue that they've been watered down, right? But this is really where you want to bring to bear the lesson objectives, right? So take a look at the first class that we had, right? In that first week, the goal of that first week is to have students justify the importance of a secure and memorable password, right? Not only are they going to justify the importance of a secure and memorable password, they're also going to create a memorable password, a memorable and secure one for their account on the school network. Right? This was in a school where every year 7 students, just as 1 student is required to have a school account. Forgive me, I'm not sure how long I was gone for, right? I think I must have been talking to myself. Yes, the devil is a liar. So can you just give me like a summary of where I stopped? The last thing you heard, right? I mean, I was here talking to myself only for me to see the loading icon pop up. So I just knew at that point that we were disconnected. Um, all right, so students creating, passwords themselves. So thank you for that. Now, students are going to create password themselves, and that's because, so I was saying that's because we relied heavily on, Google Classroom, right? And we didn't want a situation where you are just using your parents', email address, right? You are in year 7 now, right? An average year 7 student, GSS 1 student should already be within that 13-year-old, age gap. And from 13-year-old, Google, you know, um, allows you to have, an account, right? You are 13 and above, right? If your account was previously managed by a parent, once you clock 13, they will send that parent an account asking them that if they are fine for you to migrate your account so that you can handle it personally, or if they still want to, continue to manage it for you. For us, we emphasize that the students should manage their accounts themselves, but whatever password that you choose, you have to also communicate it to your parents, right? But the account should be managed solely by yourself, right? And so, and of course, we also added, remember the rules of the computing lab for students that were coming from year 5, year 4, or students that didn't even have a computing lab. So it was a good opportunity for them to catch on things to do in the computing lab and what have you, right? Bloom's taxonomy was the evaluation, creation, and remember, right?
Now, I said that it is important for us to note this particular week one, right? Because if I scroll down, there's a part of this planner that we call entry events, right? This particular entry event, who can starters and what have you. I will bring back the essence of that week one again, right? So please let's take notes of it. So all of these things were, crafted carefully. And then week two progressed in the same fashion. Examine personal documents and common application, recognize a respectful email, construct an effective email, and send it to the correct recipient, right? So at that point, particularly for the third target, right, they were going to create a constructive and effective email, right? They were going to send to me, and they were also supposed to send to another, member of the class, right? And so there's no escaping this week two without everyone knowing how to send an email, how to use Gmail to send an email, and not just any email. Email has to be respectful. You can't just send your teacher email without proper salutation and all of that. So we started from them analyzing, examine several documents, and take a stand. Was this email, respectful or not, and all of that. They're going to, carry out all of those analyses on several emails and then be able to spot out one. Now, so these are for the targets. Again, if you already have those targets in those different subjects and in those different topics, this is where that target will come into play, right? For the particular project you are working on, right? If you have 2 subjects for that particular project, in the 2 subjects, in a term, you have like 10 lessons, 10 topics. It doesn't have to be the 10 topics. Subject 1, it may just be 1 or 2 topics that, really applies to the problem you want to solve. Subject 2, it may also be 1 or 2 topics. For those 1 or 2 topics, bring the target and bring it here. So it's not like you are making another target, no. You are bringing a target here and you are arranging them in, in order of progression, so that the prerequisites are always before the next, are obvious. You don't want to put in the first target space here, you don't want to put the topic that, that they will need, that, the knowledge of that topic should have been, should have come after. You want to start from the very first topic. Okay, in these 2 subjects, in these 2 topics, which one are the students supposed to know first, so that we can build up knowledge? That's what you want to put here. Put that target here, right? Specify what Bloom's taxonomy you are trying to address. And then the next one too, specify it, whether it's in ICT, in whatever language, whatever subject, and then put all of them in the target space. Again, it's not a cliche, but it also makes a lot of sense for you to add the key vocabularies, right? The key vocabularies that you would be using, right, in all of the topics and in the different subjects, if there are different subjects, right? Add those key vocabularies, right? As many as, as you have them to be, right? Success skills and habits are the skills that we mentioned that STEM or project-based learning teaches, right?
Hello,
For this particular one. Pardon me?
Hello, we can't
Yes,
see
please.
your screen again. We can't see your screen again.
Oh, pardon me. So I've just been talking. Those people who were looking at my screen when following, forgive me. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. Oh, that was because the thing ended. So please forgive me. So You should be able to see my screen now. You can just give me that feedback.
I see it now.
All right, thank you so much. My goodness, that means I may have to go over all of these things again. But it's 7:55. Can we spare? Is it fine if we sort of push the time a bit today? Is it fine?
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for that feedback. Thank you. So so as a summary, so this was what I was referring to, right? This was the first week, and beside it is the Bloom's taxonomy. And I said that this first week is important because by the time we get to entry events, which is this part here, you will see why that first week, was important for us, right? And what I was mentioning a while ago is that this is where you put all of the different lesson objectives for the different topics and the different subjects, and you arrange them in such a way that it happens in increasing order of complexity, right? So that, I mean, even the day you are not around or the other teachers for the other topics are not around, you can pick this document and you already know that, okay, in this topic, this is where we are at, where this is what we want to look at. Anyone can, take this and be able to track. That's why you can use it to manage the entire project. Now, aside from, having all of these lesson objectives, having your vocabularies, these are things that we're already used to, all of the vocabularies that you want them to use in class. I mean, you also have to specify what skills or habits of mind you are trying to inculcate in the student, right? For this particular project-based learning, is it communication? Is it collaboration? Is it critical thinking? Is it creativity? And so on and so forth. All of these things are things you already have in your lesson plan. So they are not new things that you have to start making up or filling, right? That's why I said the project, that's what project-based learning is. It is the project, really, that informs your lesson objectives, right? So before now, where you could have, just use things like students should be able to remember or define what a password is. For this particular project that we're working on, defining what a password is not the goal. It won't help them in any way, shape, or form. So look at the overview of the project that we had in mind, what we really wanted to do. Now, so that brings us to project summary and guided activities, right? This project summary will include things like the role of the student, the problem or the challenge, the action they are taking, the purpose, beneficiaries, and so on and so forth, right? This is just like the entire outline of the project. So if you're going to be filling anything new, this will perhaps be where you want to be filling it. And this is supposed to, it's good because
We can't hear you again, please. Hello, sir. We cannot hear you again.
Hello, sir. We cannot hear you again.
I think the host is not there. It's probably network, not just.
Perhaps they got a network problem.
Okay.
Go to the screen and you cannot hear you again. We can't see, we can't hear you again.
I think the address us. He's not online again, so the admin can take over. I don't know.
Okay, please forgive me. Forgive me. My hotspot went off, so I had to just quickly switch to my mobile device. Okay, so let me just quickly present. Please again forgive this interruptions in the experience. It's not. It wasn't intentional. I mean, the grid lockdown has really been something. Okay. Okay, so I'm presenting my screen now, right? I believe, okay, so the attendance link will be sent already now. So I believe what I was saying earlier was, I was talking about how that students start by taking a stand for or against the importance, because if the driving question for this particular project is that what is my contribution to national internet safety? Then a student that doesn't even think that it is important, internet safety is important or is a thing, wouldn't bother about contributing or having to think of his or our own contribution. Now, it is fine for students to think that there's no big deal, there's no importance, it is fine, right? But once they take that stand, you now have a leverage, a good place to start from and say, okay, let's take this knowledge beyond yours. It's not your opinion or my opinion. Let's actually carry out a survey and find out what other people think. Would the consensus fall on your end, or would the consensus fall on my end, so that you can see that there's a bigger picture in play. I mean, if the entire world is saying it's important and you're the only one saying it's not important, then it should show that there's probably an error in your thinking. So the students from there carry out a mini survey, they collect all of this data and determine the conclusion or inference from the data collected. It can be a simple Google form. They can share with their parents, friends, whichever. Right? If they are not able to do Google Forms in the rural area, they can write a list of questions down. They can go from the younger class to the older class, ask them what do they think. They can go to the staff rooms, right? I mean, you can even dare say if they can write those questions in their notebook, they can take it home and hear people's feedback. And when they come to class early the next day, they can begin to collect everyone's response. It's just a question of, drawing a table and say, okay, asking them question 1, what was your answer? A, you tick A, and then you can collect how many A's or how many B's, and you know what all of those things mean, right? And then the second part, so we then move from that to splitting them into groups, right? Where they will plan a presentation on, cyberbullying, right? When they are done planning that presentation on cyber bullying, they are going to have like a competition, right? They're going to have like a competition. Now, the goal of this competition that they have with the different presentations that are coming up is so that we can select the best. It is the best presentation that we are then going to, push forward, because what we were aiming at is what the students were aiming at that point was a national campaign against cyberbullying, right? They were campaigning heavily against cyberbullying, right? Because now, from this data that they put and all of these things, the statistics were already showing that, okay, internet safety is a big deal. We couple this with, you know, all of the videos that were trending then about, you know, and all of that, right? Now, the groups also, now, so when a group is as one, we have selected who will represent the entire class, right? The group who comes up with the best presentation on cyberbullying. Now, the other groups will work together on, they will plan the event, right? A live meeting, right? They will plan how they want to run that live online meeting. They will design the flyers themselves, right? The jingles, if they want the next class to attend, if they want another school, a particular class to attend, they can write those letters. And already, you can already see, for example, the letter part that I mentioned, you can already see how that the other subjects are beginning to come into into play now with their writing. Because in GSS1, they should already have a bit of experience with letters. They should have started that in primary 5, primary 6. It may not be perfect, but you're already gearing them towards how to fashion, you know, a letter. It will amaze any school to know that, oh, the GSS1 student from this other school, has, you know, they sent us this letter. It was composed by them, delivered by them, right? This is what they are planning. Please join us for this online meeting. We want to talk about cyberbullying, right? Their flyer doesn't have to be the Gegen flyer. I mean, creativity and excellence is preached, right? But they can use simple things. Canva has even made life easy. They can use even Microsoft PowerPoint or Paint to design these flyers that, you know, they can give to their teachers to help them share. And the teachers are proud to share that this is what my students are doing. Join us if you can, right? Now, this particular next one is optional, right? You notice that's why it's highlighted, right? Because at that point, we need to decide, okay, what was the STEAM club, right? What were they doing at that point, right? Can they help us tie what they are doing also, right? But this was, of course, it wasn't cast in stone. It was, you know, dependent on them, right? So if this is not available on your end, you can, of course, ignore or improvise, right? This wasn't really, you know, compulsory, right? And then class would then go ahead to solicit help from parents and the general public in sharing their products, their flyers, their live meetings, and all of the things that they have, right? Class will need to possibly leverage on schools' relationship with other schools to push out publication and meeting links and you know, the application, right? So your school now may have relationship with other government schools, other private schools, other school heads, other leaders in their rights. And then they can help you talk to these people and say, okay, my year 7 students, my GSS1 student, this is what they are doing, right? And all of that. So this details the entire thing we had in mind for the project, right? That's why we call it the project summary, right? That's what we're, you know, aiming to do. Right? Now, the entry events. How did we start in that first week? How did we begin this entire thing, right? We started by, at that time also, coincidentally, that was the time where, I don't know, as many people that may remember, that was the time where the account of Bill Gates or Elon Musk was hacked at that time, where there was a post on his account, on his official account, that for people to send him a particular number of Bitcoin, whatever amount of Bitcoin you send, right, I will double it and send back to you. I mean, if you see that coming from the official page of the richest person as at that time, or one of the richest people as at that time, I mean, everyone fell prey to it, and everyone was just sending, you know, Bitcoin, thinking that, oh, the richest person would double it and send it back to them. It was from his official page, so no one really had a course to, you know, except for those that were, you know, truly smart and thought twice. right? No, there won't be any assessments for today's session, right? So all of this is what and this and the others is how we entered into the week one of this lesson. That was how we launched it. That was how we launched it, right? We brought up those news, right? Channel CNN, we put it on the board, right, for them to see. This is not made up, right? This is real life. This is not theoretical, right? That's what project-based learning is about. It's real life, real world, right? And then the survey to know how internet safety is important, the ACT social accounts, cyberbullying, intergroup competition, presenting cyberbullying, planning live campaign, and all of the other things. These were all of the events that we had for that period, right? Now, the products differed, right? We had a class product and we had individual products, right? Another benefit of project-based learning, right? If you carry out a product, right? Remember when we talked about student choice and we talked about sustained inquiry, right? These are some of the things that leads to variety in final products that the students will have, right? The survey that they did was a personal product, right? They were free to choose their population. You can go and meet your parents. You can go and meet this class. You can go to your church, your friends at home. It's a personal product. You're going to tabulate. You're going to compare the data. It was a personal product, right? For the groups, they came up with presentation. That was a group product, right? Executing, designing all of the flyers and all of that thing. That was also another group product. So in a class, you have many things to showcase. In just one term or in just one half term, you already have many things to showcase. And then, of course, making product public. Right? Some of the ways the student made those product public was, sharing their flyers, their jingles on social media for those that had social media and for those that cajoled their parents and cried on their parents' neck to, their flyers up and their live event that they wanted to host and all of those things. Right? We did a live recording of the meeting, even though we didn't eventually host it on YouTube, right? But there was a live recording of the entire event, right? Another vital part would be, sort of like the resources we needed, right? On-site people, right? For the physical distribution of flyers, right? Mr. Solomon, you also want to list the equipment you need. If you need laptops, desktop, smartphones, cameras, tripod stands for the live event. Materials, you need internet, paper for printing, writing materials, logistics, cost when necessary. If you are going to another school and all of that, sometimes you want to also factor in the cost of all of those things, right? So you see that just by merely looking at this, you can already tell. Hence why we called the project is the PBL planner. Hence why we called it what we did, right? Remember, we said that it's a strategic tool designed to help educators effectively organize and implement project-based learning, right? Because all of this information are things that you will need, must, practice or carry out that project-based learning. You need to know what costs, are there going to be cost implications? How are we going to do this? How are we going to do that? Right? And all of this, really, you can do all of this. At first, when you're trying this out at first, maybe the first time or the second time you're doing it, you may think it is tedious, right? For me now, I can finish up with a planner. If I sit with, if it's just my subject or if I sit with another teacher, we can start and conclude a planner in a day. A day, of course, is too much, right? The only part that will take the longest of the time, right, will be the part where we are brainstorming what problem do we want to solve and with what topics can we solve them with, right? That will perhaps be because there are so many problems, really, and we want to do something that will be worthwhile, right? We always want to do things that are, that for me, I normally tell schools to attempt project-based blocks that can put their school in the limelight. So I normally tell them to target issues around SDGs, right? Or target trending issues in society. I mean, this is not a rule of thumb. For you, it may be different. You can start little, but when you do it once, the second time you are doing it, all of these other things will just immediately pop into your mind because you already know, okay, these are things we will need. So you are just slotting them in and typing them, right? And the reflection method would, of course, amend all of these different points will be the whole class, right? A reflection method would be deciding which presentation was the best. And then we pick the one that is the best. And those are the people that will now represent us, represent the class in the online event. Gallery work, where people look at other presentations that the other groups made and see, okay, this was better. Or could I have used the color scheme that you use? Could I have added this other information that you have? Right? And so on and so forth. Right? For me, I just decided to add links to my actual lesson plans. That's what you see here as notes, right? Week 1 folder and so on and so forth, right? You can add as many. So inside of this, it wasn't just week 1 folder. If I open that folder, it will show you all of the weeks there, right? But that's not compulsory. That was just my, my own add-on, right? For teacher, because I just wanted to just have just this one document so that from this one document, I can access the other lesson note that I have instead of carrying 2 documents. But if you are fine, I mean, it works without even adding that last part. And then that brings us to the end of what this PBL planner is. I am hopeful that I've done justice to it as much as I can. I mean, if you have questions, the questions can begin to come in. If you feel that you want to type, please type. If you want to also unmute, please unmute. Remember that the attendance link has been shared already, right? It has been shared already. So please click on the link and fill the attendance. It's very important, right? Please click on the link and fill the attendance. While there may be some questions that you may want us to take. While the questions are coming up, I must say a big thank you for the past 3 days that we've spent together. It's been an awesome journey. It's been a privilege to co-facilitate this training. I mean, I've tried as much as possible to share from my experience, the number of years that I've been practicing this. I hope that you do see value in it. I hope that you have plans to, use it, right? If at any point you are struggling with understanding any part of this at all, right? I left my number yesterday. I'm going to do that again now, 081-6836-8004. I would attend to as many people as I can, right? Please, how can we have, I want to scroll back there. Yes. All right. How can we have the template for the PBL? I'll share this also. Because this particular one is like PDF. You won't be able to edit this, but I'll share one that you can edit. I'll share one that is already, filled out that you may want to, use in case you are trying to understand what a particular group is, right? You saw vocabulary and you're wondering, what did we fill under vocabulary? You can use this as a backup. And then I'll share another one that is empty that you can just type into on a go. Long run, I'm thinking I've been planning it for a while to make like it's a digitized copy, right? It's more like of an application, but I'm not gonna sing it out now, right? But eventually I would do that, which will make PBL, accessible to, a larger group, particularly in Nigeria and Lagos, right? Yes, please. I'll try as much as possible to be available. Someone should type the mobile number here, please. I already did. Thank you so much for as many people that value the class. I do appreciate.